All right, guys. Hello and welcome back to AP World History. Okay, so before we start, I need to ask you guys to think back to our first day in class together. I had you guys make those periodization charts, right? And so I asked you guys to put yourselves in the shoes of a historian. Okay, I asked you, why would a historian choose to group major events based on themes? Okay. I want you to think about that because I think as we continue on with our curriculum, sometimes I'll stop class and I'll say, College Board really wants you to know this. So I want you guys to think about that every time I say something like that, okay? It might not be because I necessarily agree with the College Board if they find something important, but I want you to think about that for today because we are going to talk about something called the Columbian Exchange. And it is probably one of the top 5 things that you have to know in AP World History. Okay. So this picture right here is actually a map of the exchange. Okay. So it is a literal exchange. It is an exchange between the old world and the new world. So it's an exchange between Europe, Africa, and Asia, and the new world of North America, South America, and the Caribbean. So I will show you lots of maps of the Columbian Exchange today. And my hope is that even though you probably won't be able to memorize all of the foods and all of the diseases, my hope is that you'll get kind of a sense of just the major stuff that is going to be exchanged during this major global exchange, okay? So, taking our attendance, I am going to give you a meme of the day. We'll see if we can, don't make me regret this is all I'll say, okay? And afterwards, we are going to jump right into Unit 4, Topic 4.3. So, today is one of those days that you have to listen to. You have to take really good notes. You have to sign off of Zoom or end this video being experts on the Columbian Exchange because this is super important and it will come up again. Okay? So, meme of the day. So last class, guys, we talked about major European empires, including the Dutch. Okay? So I thought this was a good meme. I wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, so if you're in class with me, this is when you'll submit your digital notebook writing. But we're not in class, so again, as a reminder to all of you, we are in period 2. You took your period 1 exam last week. And so we're actually jumping ahead to Unit 4, but we will go back to Unit 3 later, okay? Again, look at that exam waiting, guys. Make sure you're aware that the 1450 to 1750 chronological period is very important. So, quick review, guys. We talked about 2 different kind of empires last week, okay? And we said, I gave you 5 different European empires, okay? And I said that quite a few of them have something in common and one is a little bit different. All right, does anyone remember what what this was about? Right, so 4 of those 5 major empires were trading post empires. So like the meme we just looked at where the Dutch were kind of scattered all over the world. A trading post empire is an empire that maybe instead of having this huge swath of land they have to control and really, really pay close attention to, they can have smaller trading posts scattered throughout the world. And these trading post empires mostly exist to control trading routes, okay? They're not necessarily there to have like a monopoly on one land. So you see the Portuguese and the Dutch in the Indian Ocean. You see the British and the French kind of in North America, okay? So I wanted to I want you guys to look at this really quick because I think this gives you more of an idea of what I'm talking about here. So you've got these trading post empires like the Dutch and the trading post empire like the British. So again, you see these little speckles of trading posts throughout the world, okay? But I want you guys to compare that to an empire, right? A European empire that is not a trading post empire, but is instead one that controls a huge portion of the new world. Okay. I want you to think about some of the advantages and disadvantages. Okay. I think it's really important to know that these two empires, right? These two types of empires, the trading post empires and kind of the major, bigger empires, their goals are very similar. Okay, they aim to extract resources, and they aim to spread Christianity. They spread to they want to colonize, but they do it a little bit differently. And again, as we said, these trading post empires exist primarily to control trading routes. So you can't really control a trading route if you've just got all the land. Okay, there's not really one particular trading route that the Spanish need to control here. All right, instead, you see like the Dutch and the British and the Portuguese kind of competing with each other for trade over in the Indian Ocean. Okay, I just wanted you guys to get a sense of what that looks like because these are two different types of European empires. Okay. So, as I just said to you guys, with that map, the Spanish conquest of America. So, the Spanish are not going to be a trading post empire. Okay. They don't have little trading posts speckled throughout the world. Instead, they pretty much have a monopoly on North and South America, North, Central, and South America. Okay. Now, what the Spanish are going to do is they're going to come into this region of the world and they are going to heavily extract resources. So, as we talked about in last class, resources equal power. So, in order to extract resources from these regions, the Spanish actually need to suppress the civilizations that exist there already. So, what they do, okay, this word right here, the conquistador, it's a word for the conqueror. So the Spanish conquerors, they're going to use a combination of guns, germs, steel, and horses to conquer major native empires. All right. And they're going to conquer these Amerindians very quickly. Okay. So the Spanish conquistadors will conquer the Incas. They will conquer the Mayas, the Olmecs, and the Aztecs as well. Okay. What this is going to do, we will talk a little bit more about guns, germs, and steel because this is important, guys. It seems like very, minor things, right? Everybody has guns, everybody has germs. At this point in humanity, everyone has steel, but that's not really the case. So this area of the world does not have access to European technology. It does not have access to guns. And the kinds of germs that are going to come from Europe are going to be lethal to this isolated population. Okay. Horses are not going to exist in this region either. So that's going to be a very quick, it's going to be a deadly weapon as well. So guys, the Spanish are going to open up this whole swath of land, all of this untapped resources for them to use, and they're going to become a global power because of it. All right. And whomever they don't kill in this process, they're going to create a color-based hierarchy. So we talked a lot about social hierarchies. Remember, I always did the little triangle for you. We will talk plenty about this in the coming days, but the Spanish will create a hierarchy based on the color of your skin. Okay. And the Spaniards that were born in Spain will be at the top. And then there will be ensuing native indigenous groups on the bottom. So we'll talk more about that shortly. Okay, guys, so we're going to get onto the Columbian Exchange now. So first of all, does anyone want to guess why This exchange between the new and old world is called the Columbian Exchange. Yes. So I'm sure many of you have guessed it. It's going to be named after this contentious figure, okay, Mr. Christopher Columbus. So Christopher Columbus, as you all know, sailed the ocean blue in 1492. And basically his voyage is, at least, obviously it's up for debate, but his voyage is considered to be the first interaction between Europe and the New World. Okay, so historians today, they tend to think of the world as, yes, 1492, this is what we've got. And after 1492, everything changes. So it's this hard, quick split. So you have the world in 1492, you have trade and the Silk Road, people are living happily, isolated, whatever. But after this, after Columbus discovers new land in the Western Hemisphere, the world is going to completely change, and it's going to change overnight, okay? 1492, and you wake up in 1493 and the world is twice the size. All right, it's twice the size, and there are lots of new resources and lots of new power. All right, so what is the Columbian Exchange? Okay, it's named after Christopher Columbus, and it is basically starting in 1492, 1493. It will be the first truly global exchange. So yes, the Silk Road, the Trans-Saharan trading route, and the Indian Ocean trading route are definitely interconnected trading routes, but it's not truly global, okay? You're not seeing any of these really important luxury goods or foods or staple crops or diseases. They're not spreading truly global, okay? They're not leaving this quote unquote old world. They're not leaving Europe, Asia, Africa. But the Columbian Exchange, again, is the first time that stuff is going to be leaving the old world for the new world and the new world for the old world. So it will be an exchange of food, people, diseases, plants, and religion. And this is going to take place between Europe, Africa, the Americas, and Asia. And it's going to be in this post-Columbus world. So every year after 1492 is going to be part of this Columbian Exchange. Okay. Now, as I said to you when we first opened class, I'm going to give you lots of maps of the Columbian Exchange. So you don't need to know every single crop, every single disease that is spread, but I really hope you get at least a solid idea of the kinds of stuff that are going to be spread and what this means for the world, what this means for population, what this means for diseases, what this means for farmers. Everyone in the world is going to be affected by this Columbian Exchange, okay? So that is also why College Board thinks it's super important for you to know. So you should know it. So I know y'all love to talk about diseases, so that's what we're gonna do. Now, I obviously think you should write down the things that I've got on my PowerPoint, but I also really like this graph here. So I would also recommend writing that down as well. So again, we're talking about the exchange between the old world and the new world, the old world being Europe, Asia, South Asia, Africa, all that fun stuff. The new world being North America and South America. Okay, so diseases that are exchanged. All right, again, it's super weird to talk about diseases when we're living in a global pandemic, but here we are. Diseases are going to be transferred both ways. So you're going to see diseases leaving Europe and traveling across the Atlantic Ocean and killing huge amounts of Amerindians, okay? But you're also going to see diseases that were native to the New World that will be spread in Europe. Now, I don't want you to get the idea that this is a fair trade, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. But the worst disease that is going to be spread is smallpox. So Europeans and African enslaved peoples will bring smallpox into the New World. So smallpox is an incredibly deadly disease. It's horrific. If you guys have strong stomachs, I would recommend looking it up. but if you don't have a strong stomach, do not look it up. It's horrifying. And it is very, very deadly. But smallpox has been around in Europe and Africa and Asia for decades, centuries, long, long times. And people have actually developed um, immunity to it. So they'll be carriers of smallpox, but they won't necessarily die from smallpox because, again, for so long, people have been exposed to it and their bodies have actually built up immunity to it. But there are people in South and North America who have never had any exposure to smallpox. So the first time they are exposed to it via European conquistadors or African enslaved peoples, they will die. They have no immunity and it will kill them. Okay. And this is a very, very sad part of the Columbian Exchange. But guys, 95%, all right, of the Amerindian populations are going to die. It's not just smallpox. It's also going to be the measles, diphtheria, lots of awful, awful diseases that Europeans have created immunity to come into North and South America and just slaughter the populations. So I also want you to know, guys, that it's not just people that are spreading these diseases, okay? It is also vermin, all right? So rats on ships that get on a ship in, I don't know, London or Paris or anywhere, get on that ship, go across the Atlantic Ocean, get off and spread diseases. Very similar to how the bubonic plague was spread, guys, okay? So yes, I told you about having a strong stomach. This was kind of the least gross picture of smallpox, even though poor little baby. Measles, okay. This is the actual disease, the germs for, I believe, I'm not sure what germ that was for, but yes, and the vermin, okay. So transfer of diseases between the old and new world. Super important to know this. And again, guys, please, please, please have this awesome little chart written down. So the transfer is also going to be two ways. So while smallpox and the measles, diphtheria, gross diseases are spread from Europe into the Americas, another disease actually is spread from the Americas to Europe, and that is syphilis. All right. Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. So while the longer you have syphilis, eventually it is a fatal disease. But these diseases really aren't, it's not really a fair trade if you think about it. Smallpox, measles, typhus, cholera, diphtheria, scarlet fever, these are all deadly diseases. So if you come into contact with somebody, you could die, okay? Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. So there are ways to prevent STDs. You guys know how to prevent STDs. That's all I have to say about that. So, it's a little unfair that the old world spreads these horrible diseases of contact, whereas the new world, these diseases aren't necessarily, you won't get syphilis just from contact. Okay. So I've got a little cartoon for you. I think this is a good cartoon to kind of give you a sense of what the Columbian Exchange is about via diseases. Now, I do want you to understand that the Europeans did not necessarily, they didn't try to get people sick. They didn't try to trade diseases. But they brought these diseases with them while they came into the New World, which, killed 95% of the Amerindian populations. Think about that for a second. 95%. That's insane. Okay. All right. So in addition to diseases, guys, you're going to have new trading goods. So the Spanish are going to, all right, let me back up. From America to Europe. All right. So from the New World to the Old World. The Spanish are going to export silver. Okay. So, all right, this one's not actually going to Europe, but as we talked about a little bit last class, The Spanish are actually going to find a literal mountain made out of silver. So I've got kind of a picture of it right here. In modern day Bolivia, this mountain in Potosi, it is a literal mountain made out of silver, and they are going to mine it through enslaved person labor. And they are going to take that silver and they are going to bring it to the Philippines, and they are going to use the Philippines to get the Ming dynasty in China to trade with them. Now, as I said, the Ming dynasty doesn't normally trade with outsiders, but the Chinese want silver, love silver. Silver is a luxury good to the Chinese, okay? And the Spanish are going to exploit South America and send that stuff to Asia. Okay, the Portuguese in Brazil. Okay, remember we talked about how the Treaty of Tordesillas kind of split the world in half for the Spanish and the Portuguese, and it essentially forced the Portuguese to take Brazil. Well, Brazil is going to be a very profitable colony for the Portuguese. So good climate, they're going to be able to grow sugar. Okay, sugar is going to be an important cash crop. So they're going to be able to export sugar to Europe. And so sugar is actually a very arduous crop. Okay, it grows and it's really hard to take it down. And the way that they're going to do this is they're actually going to they're the only people that are going to be wanting to work on sugar farms, sugar plantations. Well, there's nobody that wants to work on them. So they're going to have to actually take enslaved people from West Africa, and they're going to have to export them to Brazil to take down these sugar plantations. Okay. So this is actually a picture. It's not a very good one, but you can see that African enslaved peoples will be taken from Africa, and they will be part of this Columbian Exchange. So they'll be taken from Africa and brought over into the New World in order to harvest sugar for Europeans to profit from. So, as you can see, the Columbian Exchange, part of that is also enslaved peoples, okay? The Spanish, English, French, and Dutch are also going to have islands in the Caribbean, all right? And again, they too will have sugar, okay? They will be exporting sugar. And again, sugar is absolutely miserable to chop down and create. So they too will be importing African enslaved peoples to work on these plantations, and it will be miserable, but you need to understand that African enslaved people will be a commodity. Okay, the British will also take tobacco from the 13 colonies. So Europeans love themselves some cigarettes. So you probably know that Virginia and North Carolina grow a lot of tobacco. And the Europeans are going to extract that resource and make the money off of it. Okay? So guys, you may have heard of this triangle trade before. It kind of goes hand in hand with the Columbian Exchange. From Europe and Africa to America, as I just said, guys, you're going to see enslaved people from Africa. But I do need to reiterate that enslaved people from Africa were usually going to be captured and enslaved by their fellow Africans. Okay, so Europeans were primarily just slave traders. So what would happen, those trading posts on the coast of West Africa, rival Western African tribes would go snatch people and sell them to Europeans. Europeans would transport them to the New World. They would transport them to Brazil and the Caribbean and the Americas, okay? But you need to understand that at this point, enslaved people are going to primarily be captured and sold by other Africans. Okay, it's kind of the same as it was with the Indian Ocean trading or the enslaved people trade. Okay, Europe and Africa is also going to send manufactured goods and textiles. So we'll talk more about that soon, but Europe is going to start industrializing. They're going to start building factories soon. Okay. So what is Africa going to get out of this? So in order for Africans to capture other Africans for this enslaved person trade, Africans are going to want something out of the Europeans, and they're going to want guns. They're going to want textiles, and they're going to want metal goods. So Europe, again, Europe doesn't have a lot of resources in period one, but they're eventually going to have a lot of technology. They're going to have guns, they're going to have textiles from these manufacturing industrialized factories, and they're going to have metal goods. And Africans want that. So Africans are going to capture other Africans for the slave trade in order to get these items. Okay, you're also going to see new trading goods. Europe is finally going to get Chinese silk and Chinese porcelain, and it's going to come mostly, actually, it's going to come to Spain through the Philippines. So, as we said, the Spanish are going to be trading silver to the Chinese, and in return, they're going to be getting silk and porcelain, and that's going to come through the Philippines. Okay. So I wanted you guys to take a look at this map. You will probably see it again in this class. But I wanted you to take a look at the African slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. So you're going to see these huge amounts of people that are being exported out of West Africa and sent to the New World. So they're being sent, first, they're primarily being sent to Brazil to work on these sugar plantations, and then later to the Caribbean to work on these sugar plantations. Very few of them in this period are being sent to what later becomes the US. So as you can see, not a whole lot of African enslaved peoples are going to the United States. All right, this will increase later, but in period one, primarily enslaved peoples will be being sent to Brazil and the Caribbean to work on sugar plantations. Okay? So I'm going to reiterate this again because I want to make sure you guys get it. The Columbian Exchange is the first truly global trade. Yes, we had a lot of trade going on in Eurasia, the Silk Road, the Trans-Saharan trading route, the Indian Ocean trading route, but we're now getting global, guys. All of that trade that we saw here is now going to be encompass the New World. Okay, South and North America are suddenly going to become players in this game. Okay, Europe is going to extract resources from them for their own benefit. So I wanted you to get a sense of what this looks like because these are all the new trading routes you see. So again, we had our Silk Road, we had our Trans-Saharan trading route, we had the Indian Ocean trading route, and now we have the Columbian Exchange. Okay, we've got the African enslaved person trade, all right, the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, we've got the Dutch and the Portuguese trading over here in the Indian Ocean. Okay, the Spanish from the Philippines are right here. The Philippines are right here. They're going to be silver is going to come straight from here, and it's going to come all the way to the Philippines to go into China. Okay. So other things you have to know about. Okay, so staple crops. So I know it seems really weird that we're talking about food in a history class, but you have to know about this. Super important. And again, I've given you another fun little map with the Columbian Exchange goods. So what comes out of the Americas is super important. So a lot of food that you and I grew up on, our staple diet, was not in Europe prior to the Columbian Exchange, okay? I grew up on potatoes. Potatoes are not native to Europe. They are native to South America, okay? Corn, it's like America's favorite food. Spicy hot peppers, all right? Pumpkins. So next time you go to Starbucks and get your pumpkin spice latte, it's gonna be native to the Americas, all right? Tobacco. And then this one right here, guys, manioc, which you've probably never heard, is a staple crop in Africa today. And it ain't from Africa. All right, this originally is gonna come from the New World. Okay, the other thing is tomatoes. Tomatoes has a pretty funny story. Originally, because it was red, Europeans thought it was evil and did not eat it, okay? Eventually they will adapt and they will eat these foods, okay? Some of these foods are going to become critical crops, pretty much become staple crops of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Okay, again, manioc becomes a staple crop in Africa. Potatoes become a staple crop in Europe. Okay, really important stuff. But like all transfers, you're going to have some that come the other way. So, Africa, enslaved people are going to bring crops from Africa. Okay, they're going to bring rice. Rice will become a major crop in the United States. Okay, it's going to be grown throughout South Carolina. Okra, next time you have your fried collards, okay? Okra. Bananas, it's going to come from Africa, guys. Europe to America, guys. The citrus trees. Now, I told you about this a couple weeks ago about how citrus trees come from Spain, all right? That was part of that Islam spread. Horses, pigs, chicken, cattle, all of these, I guess delicious foods, except for horses, are going to come to the New World via Europe. Actually, they're going to come via European conquest. Okay. So what would we do without the Columbian Exchange? No food, no animals, no plants, no nothing. So now the whole point of all this stuff, we've got to bring it all together. Okay, the impact of these new food exchanges. All right, so we just talked a lot about death and destruction and enslaved people's trade. So I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, this Columbian Exchange thing wasn't that great. And you're probably right, okay? 95% of the Amerindians in North and South America are killed because of diseases that come here through the Columbian Exchange, okay? Hundreds of thousands of enslaved African peoples are stolen from their homelands, put on boats and forced to work on sugar plantations in Brazil and in the Caribbean. Okay, it doesn't seem like this is really that good. And yet, the impact of this exchange is pretty much mind-blowing, okay? Despite all of the negative impacts of weapons and diseases and enslavement, global populations are going to increase like crazy amounts, okay? So all of a sudden, places in Europe are going to be able to actually feed themselves, all right? We talked a little bit about this in period 1. We talked about what it means to have a surplus of food, right? We talked about how when you have a surplus of food, you can support a big population. And when you have a surplus of food, you can also trade that surplus of food, okay? So all of a sudden, all of these new crops that are being exchanged between the new and old world are creating a food surplus. And so if you have a food surplus, you have more people you can feed. And you have more food that you can trade. Okay, so this Columbian Exchange is going to be a cyclical thing. Okay, more food, more things that are going to be traded. Okay, eventually Europeans are going to have enough to start industrializing. So this is just one example right here, guys, of what it looks like. So European population is pretty small in 1500, but this is kind of the start of the Columbian Exchange. So 2 years later, you can see the immense population growth. And by 1800, right, this is just after period 3 starts, Europe has almost doubled, okay? Actually, I think Europe has doubled, yeah. So this is gonna be the most unprecedented food exchange the world has seen up to this time. So even though we did talk about a food surplus in China in period 1 with that champa rice, this is global, guys, all right? Food surpluses are happening all over Asia, all over Europe, all over South America, all over Africa. So in addition to staple crops and diseases and all that other fun stuff that is being traded on this Columbian Exchange, you're also going to see the spread of religion and language. Okay, so we talked a lot about in period one about the difference between missionary and non-missionary religions, right? So, um, you need to understand that when these European empires are out there colonizing, they're also working hard to spread Christianity. So, what you're going to see is that Christianity is actually going to be the first truly global religion. So, yes, it is a missionary religion. And I say that it is a first truly global religion, not because it's the first, but because Christianity is seen everywhere, seen in Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe, everywhere. Okay. Now, other religions will follow it, but Christianity is going to spread because of these European empires. Okay. So, Protestant and Catholic beliefs are two components of this Christianity. So right now, you probably don't know what a Protestant is, and we will get there. We're going to talk about the difference between Catholics and Protestants shortly in this class. But just know that these are two variations of Christianity, and they are going to be spreading on this global exchange. Okay, so the other thing that will be exchanged is languages, all right? English, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, French, all of these languages are going to be spread. Okay, I think the most obvious example is that I'm sitting here lecturing to you in English, okay? English is not native to this area of the world. It spreads because of the English Empire. Take another example, Mexico, okay? Mexico, they're going to be speaking Spanish. They're going to be practicing Catholicism. This is all because these European empires spread their religions and spread their languages. Okay? And there's plenty of other examples. Brazil today speaks Portuguese and practices Catholicism. Again, because of these European empires. The other thing that's going to spread, guys, is African languages. All right. African native religious beliefs are going to spread to the Americas. So during the transatlantic slave trade, African peoples will be captured and enslaved and brought to the New World. Okay. And they will spread their religions and cultures to the New World. And we'll talk more about that soon, but it's pretty important. So all of these major changes, guys, staple crops, religion, diseases, all right, all of this stuff, all of it is going to be driven by Europeans. So I want you to think back to 2 weeks ago in our lecture about the Europeans and how in period one, they were so isolated and they had no innovations and they were stuck in this feudal system and it was stagnant and decentralized and boring. And now they're out basically conquering the world, all right, and spreading religion, and spreading languages, and spreading crops, okay? Because this is just a major theme of AP World, guys. So before I leave you guys, I need you to write this down. When we talked about land-based empires in period one, I made sure to emphasize to all of you that land-based empires were tolerant. They were inclusive, okay? In order to be a successful land-based empire, you have to be willing to allow people to practice their own religions or speak their own languages, okay? How come European maritime empires are just not tolerant? Like they're just not inclusive. What's the difference here, okay? Why did the Mongols have to be tolerant and inclusive of local civilizations, but the Portuguese Empire doesn't? Like, what's the difference here? And honestly, it comes down to technological superiority, okay? With a land-based empire, you conquer a certain amount of people and then you have to keep them happy. But with a maritime-based empire, if you conquer a certain amount of people, the chances are good that your technology is superior. Okay, you've got these big boats, you've got your fancy guns, okay? And so the people that you tend to conquer, you don't have to be tolerant to. You don't have to be inclusive. You just tell them what to do or they're gonna die. So you guys need to make sure you understand the difference between maritime-based empires and land-based empires because it's pretty important in this period. Okay. All right, guys. So this is my final slide, and I wanted to leave you, of course, with another of the 50,000 maps I've given you of the Columbian Exchange. So I will give you your writing assignment in just a few minutes. If you have any questions, make sure to email them